All right.
Today we're going to look at my 1996 Lotus Super 7 Replica. I've had it for about 7 years now and I've had an absolute blast with it. It's definitely turned into a real driver's car in the time that I've had it. I bought it with less than 6,000 kilometers and it's got over 38,000 kilometers on it now. And this is one of my favorite cars to drive out of everything I've driven. The bang for the buck in a car like this is incredible. You can't buy anything that is just so basic and so much fun these days. And I think that's why there's a huge following on these cars now. It seems like they've been they've become way more popular than they ever used to be. So this particular one, it's a Formula 27 chassis, custom built chassis. The nose cone and the fender flares were purchased from Formula 27 when they were still around. Unfortunately, they're no longer. But the frame has been custom made. The A-arms have been custom made. It's got Datsun uprights. It's got a rear end out of a Corolla AE86, and it runs a Toyota 4AG 16 valve, and it actually has a Weber 45 DCOE setup on it. And besides that, it also has a nice cam setup in it. Not super aggressive or anything, just makes it a really nice daily driver. Of course, it's got a coilover setup here for the suspension. It's got Willwood 4-piston front brakes. So they are very potent. The car stops really, really well. I've done a few track days in it and it is an absolute riot. The only thing that scares me is, of course, the rear end is out of Corolla. It is not an independent suspension setup in this car. So when it starts to go out on you, you do feel it, but if you continue to push it, it does go around. Because everything on this car is custom, it does make me just a little bit nervous about taking it out on the track. But I still do it occasionally. I just try to be a little bit more careful with it when I am out. So taking a look at the back of my car, obviously first thing you probably notice is I've got a roll bar on it. I think this is something that you need, like hands down, especially if you're gonna track it. Obviously it's a requirement, but if you're ever gonna put a top on the car or do a bikini top, I recommend having it. If you're ever gonna do any road trips, you can actually put stuff on the back, strap it to it. I do also have a roof that mounts to the roll bar. That's a big thing as well if you're gonna have a roof. Even though you might not have it run off the actual roll bar, bikini tops would, but a full top wouldn't. You still need it because you need to mount it somehow. So I don't know if you can see in the frame, with my top, I actually did damage my roll bar on each side. I scuffed the paint off. No one really notices it too much, but I notice it because it's my car. So that's gonna get fixed eventually here. And I'm gonna modify the top a little bit first, but the top does fold down. I don't have it in the car all the time. It actually folds out. It sits to about back here, and it doesn't really stay on the car very well when it is down. So I only put it on when I know it's gonna rain or I have to take it out of town and I don't know what the weather's gonna be like. The only thing is with that, it does make it extremely difficult to get in and out of the car. You kind of have to Superman yourself in, and getting out is kind of reverse of that. As well, I had the top actually custom made, so the doors custom made at the same time. And the doors are actually the thing that I use almost all the time unless it is really warm out and I can have them off. That's the like primo time to drive the car. But anytime I go on the highway, I put the doors on. They're a necessity. Cuts the wind down so much, makes it way more comfortable to drive. The spare tire had only been off after, well, over 20 years. I actually had the car and the first time it came off was because I had to remove it. And I don't remember what the reason was, but I had to remove it. Oh, you know what? I dropped something down there and I had to pull it off so I could get it off. So the exhaust, of course, it is single header. It's got the collector pipe there, runs down the side, has a super trap muffler, and I need to repack it. I keep getting harassed to repack it. I've never touched it, but it was also never touched in the time that the previous owner had it. So there's a good chance I might just need to replace it now or just completely get new insides. I don't know how that all works. I know nothing about bike mufflers, and that is basically what that is. The exhaust pipe runs all the way out the back. A lot of these cars do dump right beside the driver or passenger, depending on which side the exhaust is exiting from, depending on your engine setup. But in this case, it does actually come out the back. Makes it a lot quieter, but it is still loud. Looking down a little bit closer at the front end, of course, it's got the custom suspension setup, custom A-arms, upper and lower. It's got a custom sway bar in here too that you can see. And the headlight buckets are original to the car, but I did upgrade the headlights because I do drive this car. I am out at night with it quite a bit. I did end up putting some LED headlights in it. They are a cheap Amazon special, but they are incredible. You'll see this style of light very commonly used in Harleys, a lot of bikes now that of course use the usual kind of 7-inch round. And they are very powerful. I usually blind people, not intentionally, but just because they are so bright, and I do have them aimed down as far as I can go. The fender flares, they're a little bit beat up now, unfortunately, just with age and everything. Same thing with the coilovers. The coating on the springs has come off, so I'll probably have to get those redone at some point. And just everything in here is getting a little bit beat up, just because of course it is exposed to absolutely everything, and I do drive the car. So eventually, some point, this will all have to come apart. I'll probably have to get it repowder coated just so it's nice and fresh again. These flares, I actually had an issue once where one did come off on me, luckily after I had done my hour cruise and I was getting back into my neighborhood. Another time I was in Jasper, which is about a 3.5-4 hour drive from where we are. Took it out for a nice weekend, and the next morning when I went out to the car, I noticed I was missing some of the hardware to hold it on. So that meant a little trip to the hardware store. And I did actually have a custom grill made for it a year or two after I got the car. It had a grill that I wasn't a huge fan of. The previous owner had made it, dubbed it Lotus because it was a Toyota Lotus. So now I've got the 7 on there, and I did put a different badge on it. I am faking it. It does say Caterham Super 7, but I did get it for a friend.
All right, so we're inside Geoff's 7 now, and yeah, it's as tight as you'd think it would be. It's not horrible though, and there's a lot more space on the driver's side compared to the passenger side. The footwell does go quite a bit deeper, right up to the pedals. And I mean, I'm 6 feet tall, and my knees are at a normal height, and everything feels normal, but it all just feels like if you took a normal car and compressed everything. That's what this is. The steering wheel is tiny, the dash is tiny, everything's tiny. One really funny thing about this car, right now anyway, is that it only has one wiper blade. And normally when it has both, it doesn't really matter. It's still just as hilarious because they're like this big. And with these wipers, they are actually MG midget wipers that are shortened. So an MG midget that's already small, you have to go even smaller than that. They're tiny. Everything's tiny, that's the point. The point is, it's a small car and everything is small in it. Looking at the dash, really straightforward. You've got your basic controls, basic gauge displays here. We've got tachometer, speedometer, you've got water temp, oil pressure, voltage, and then fuel level, obviously. And there's a whole bunch of unlabeled switches in here, which for me would be a nightmare because this isn't my car. And so I, just previous to this, had to get run through what all of these switches do. And to be completely honest with you, I've probably forgotten all of them, or I'll mess it up at least. Signals are over here. You've got horn here. This one is high beams. Headlights. This is a dummy switch, so for people like me. And wipers, oh right. That's the wipers. And then this is for the heater, and I know that because this little knob, when you pull it, changes it's a heater control valve effectively. So yeah, very basic setup in here. No radio, not like you need it. This car sounds really great, and you have to really be paying attention to everything anyway. There's not really a whole lot of time or space to put a sound system in here. The seats are really comfortable. The driver's seat does need to be replaced, as Geoff was mentioning earlier, or well, reupholstered anyway. The some of the innards have kind of sunk away, and I can feel the frame cupping me quite nicely. So I guess you could just call that extra bolstering. But I mean, for a long road trip, I'm sure that would get a little bit annoying after a while. This is a 5-speed manual transmission, obviously here. And as far as positioning goes, the nice thing with these, with cars like this that are so much more compact, is that everything is very within reach. You don't feel like you're overextending. This really is a go-kart. It is a street legal go-kart in every sense of the word. All of the body panels are all exposed to the inside. You just see raw, open frame. It feels very raw. And obviously we have the doors off now for this shot. And with the doors off, there's a tremendous amount of space everywhere. You really feel very exposed, especially when I can go like this and touch the ground. It is a street legal go-kart, and I love it, and I want one. All right, so for a drive in Geoff 7. This cabin is, well, it's not much of a cabin or a cockpit.
There's a lot of space.
Yeah. Up there.
Yeah, up there. It's tight down here.
It is super tight down here.
Yeah,
like,
except it's better for the driver.
That is true, yeah.
So the center console is cut away 1.5 inches more on the driver's side. So if you're slightly larger like I am, you can sit very comfortably. If the seat didn't need to be redone and have new padding and all those things.
It's a driver car though. That's really the big thing here. Is this a driver's car?
I bought it with under 6,000 kilometers on it. And that was 7 years ago. And I could drive it more if I really wanted to, but I haven't. And I just crossed 38,000 a couple weeks ago.
Look at that. True kilometers. 38,000 true clicks. Surprisingly not that windy in here with these doors on. And kind of just these like fabric and soft plastic doors, but they do actually shield from the wind really well.
Yeah, it's night and day, either with them off and with them on. It's very comfortable with them on, but with them off it's a different story. It's one of those things that has to be like 25 Celsius, whatever that works out into in Fahrenheit. Was that about 80?
Yeah, 85.
Like to have them off comfortably.
This car rides exactly how you would expect it rides. It's certainly not a Rolls Royce when it comes to suspension.
But it rides better than a lot of other cars.
It does.
I had a Mustang that was, well, it's a Mustang.
Yeah.
But it had a aftermarket suspension that was absolutely brutal, way worse than this does.
Yeah. Yeah, I find it's not all that stiff, honestly. It's just, you definitely feel everything in the road still, but it's not uncomfortable. Yeah,
it's got a suspension in it that, it's actually got softer springs in it. If you're going to track it, say all the time, you want stiffer springs. So this car, it's got a Toyota 1.6 in it, so it's approximately 130 horsepower with mild cams.
Yeah, but 130 horsepower in a car that weighs, what does this weigh?
It's under 1,400 pounds.
Yeah. So it's a go-kart. Yeah, it goes okay. It's one of the better sounding four-cylinder, NA four-cylinders that I've heard.
It's old technology though. It's a 4AG, so it's, I mean, this engine's been around since the 80s?
Yeah.
I think this specific one came out of an MR2 and then it was converted so it could be used in a longitudinal setup.
Right. sitting over the winter. But yeah, the ground is just right there. Like, it's very surreal being this low and exposed and doing highway speeds. All right, so that's been a little bit about Geoff's 1996 Formula 27 Replica. Yeah, hope you really enjoyed this one. Very unique car. This thing has become kind of the poster child for a lot of the car groups around here, especially Horsepower for Hope, which is the charity that both Geoff and I work with. It's yeah, hard to miss on the road for sure. It's been great to be able to do a little bit of a in-depth look at it. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and leave any comments in the comment section there. Subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.